Excellent. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here. What an amazing array of talks already. I'm feeling really inspired. So yeah, very good to be here. So I'm Amy, and I'm going to talk about two projects, Reknit Revolution and Fashion Fictions. So the first one is Reknit Revolution, and this formed part of my PhD research about 10 years ago, where I developed this idea of reknitting. So I'll dive straight in. So yeah, I started working in my PhD with the idea of reknitting. So when I talk about reknitting, I am referring to a range of processes which utilise knitting skills, techniques and knowledge, and can be carried out by individuals to repair and alter existing items of knitwear. So I was really focusing on domestic practice, domestic craft practice, people doing things for themselves, particularly thinking about skilled knitters who can make new things, and seeing if I could use my design practice and craft knowledge, which I'd developed through 10 years or so of running my fashion knitwear label, to encourage people to engage with reworking things. And importantly, that is I'm encouraging people to rework things which might have been originally handmade, or they might have been mass produced, and thinking about techniques that would work for all of those things. And of course, this idea of reknitting is nothing new at all. There are lots of examples and guidance on restyling garments in general that we might come across today. In terms of knitwear, I guess I felt there was less around. And what was available, if I searched online at that time, tended to be instructions to create sort of fun accessories, which is really great if you want some fun accessories, but I didn't want any. I wanted kind of hardworking, sturdy, dependable garments for my wardrobe. And the other thing about the fun accessories kind of instructions I was finding is that they would often treat the knitted fabric, as a kind of sheet fabric to be cut and sewn together. And I was really interested in engaging with a piece of knitted fabric as a structure, and thinking about how to use every stitch, how to work with those stitches, bringing kind of knitterly knowledge to it. So I see every stitch in a piece of knitted fabric as a little unit of possibility that can be messed with. And as I say, this stuff isn't anything new. So we used to know how to do this. And I enjoyed delving into different sources to find examples of previous practice that I could be inspired by. So there's an image here from a wonderful book which actually connects a lot with what Havnane's Sweater Museum. So Anna Moore Sundbo is an amazing Norwegian woman who had a shoddy mill and was similarly collecting amazing examples of knitted garments, saving them from the jaws of the shoddy machine. Celia, who's speaking next, knows more about this than me. But from the book is this image of some stockings that Anna Moore saved from the jaws of her machine. And she reckons that in some cases, the foot of the stocking might be like 50 years older than the leg. And I found that really inspiring as a kind of model of reworking and keeping things in use. I looked in historical books as well. So the earliest example, set of instructions I could find for reworking a knitted garment was this one from 1916, which is pretty much the start of people even wearing knitwear as outerwear. So from the start, from that point, people were thinking about how to rework existing things. And unsurprisingly, there was lots of great information in books from the Second World War, instructions for how to take your very worn out piece of knitwear and reclaim the yarn and reknit it into something new. So I worked with those kind of instructions and examples, but I also wanted to bring my ideas as a designer, and I also wanted to respond to the things that were in our wardrobes today, which includes a lot of fine gauge industrially produced knitwear, that maybe wasn't around at the so prevalent at the time that some of these examples are from. And also, I guess the other difference is that obviously in World War II, these instructions for remaking are from a society experiencing scarcity, so not enough stuff, whereas today, as a society in the global north, we're experiencing gross kind of overabundance of stuff. So the context for reworking things and the way you might choose to go about them is perhaps different. So through a lot of iterations, this was actually several years of work, I got to this kind of schematic diagram, which shows the idea is that you can plug any piece of knitwear in at the top and then follow the different paths, and it shows in technical terms 12 different treatments, I call them, for how you could rework an existing knitted garment. And they sort of develop in terms of the extent and the technical type of intervention that you might make, in terms of whether you're opening a row horizontally, whether you're cutting vertically, whether you're not actually opening the fabric, you're just adding into it, and so on. So I'm going to show you just a few examples of these things. So the first one is a treatment called replace cuff. And this is something that, again, would have been done historically. Plenty of people have told me that they have done this. A few still do. When cuffs are worn out, or perhaps when a child grows and you need to extend the length of the sleeves of the jumper. And this practice was certainly common in the past. So I've read about it being commonly done for fishermen's jumpers. There's no need to reknit a whole jumper if you just need to replace a ragged cuff. And what I've done here, and if you're looking extremely closely, you'd see that I've been able to change gauge. And so that's one of the key things that I was working on in terms of encouraging people to work with finer gauge knitwear, is although the stitches might be very tiny, they behave in exactly the same way as something that you might hand knit. And you can pick up those stitches and you can work with them if you work some decreases to change the gauge of the fabric that you're working on. So I got quite geekily into the maths of that. And here's a couple of examples created by some knitters who I worked with. This one is from a group who I worked with when I was doing my PhD. And you can see on the top left that this mass-produced colourwork garment has quite ragged cuffs, and then the knitter carefully removed those cuffs and picked up the stitches and knitted beautiful new ribs, much more beautiful than they originally had been. And actually, by a complete fluke, we managed to find really beautiful matches for the yarn. It was very satisfying. And here's another one from the same group who I worked with. I don't know if you can see so well, but on the top left, the original garment had really huge holes in the elbows. But the garment was very emotionally significant to the woman who owned it. She had knitted this one originally. And so for her, replacing the cuff was more than that. It was actually replacing the whole sleeve from the armhole point downwards. And she knitted these beautiful colourwork sleeves in the round, just making it up as she went along. Really gorgeous. A second treatment that I'll share is stitch hack. So this is a technique that I developed. It's not something that I came across in a book. And it's really, because it's not really a repair technique, it's sort of an alteration and I suppose a kind of embellishment, but a structural embellishment technique. So to do this, I cut a stitch and open the fabric along a row, holding the stitches safe, and then ladder and reform each column of stitches one by one, reforming them from the face of the fabric or the reverse to create a structural design where previously the fabric was stocking stitch. So here I've put in the letter R. This one was a more time-consuming exploration of the technique, I suppose. So this was a mass-produced Marks and Spencer's item. that I got from a charity shop, and I kind of challenged myself to see if I could hack in the text from the garment labels that were inside the garment into the reverse of into the back of the sweater, as you can see here. And so, yeah, I just really love the idea of this is really seeing every stitch as a unit of possibility that I could reconfigure and mess with, and use it here. So not as a way of repairing something, there's nothing, no physical defect to be addressed, but as potentially as a way of inserting meaning or character or connection into a product of mass production. And then the third example that I'll share is the cardiganized treatment, which I really like as a big fan of cardigans. So this can be used it's sort of not really a repair technique, but it can be used if you have a jumper that's not really working for you as a jumper and it needs cardiganizing, and it involves the sometimes controversial act of cutting up the front of the sweater, which is both terrifying and exciting, and then finding a nice way of finishing that cut edge so it doesn't deconstruct as you're working with it. So here's another project by someone from that same group. So she had this jumper in her wardrobe. There wasn't anything wrong with it, but she wasn't really wearing it, didn't really do anything for her. And so she chose to use this and really thought carefully about the colours she was using, the finish. She added this beautiful pocket as well, worked super hard on it with a lovely outcome. And in general, the people who were doing these projects would take the time, and it's very time consuming. This isn't really something that you would do commercially. It's something that you can lavish love and time on yourself if you're somebody who enjoys knitting. But they would only do it really for a garment that already had some significance and some appeal that they wanted to sort of bring out. And here's another example from a different group who I worked with a bit later when I had an exhibition of this work. And this woman was like really excited about the techniques. And as you can see from the upper to the lower image, she took a jumper dress, she cardiganized, she found a way to bring in the waist, she added a pocket, she added a shawl collar. She really went to town on kind of challenging herself to work with these ideas and techniques and using her skills to do so. So that was a little whirlwind tour, kind of dipping into the ideas of this kind of reknit work that I've put together. And I suppose, as I said at the beginning, these are a set of techniques that I am trying to encourage people to have a go at. They're aimed at people who can knit and are interested in using their knitting practice in a different way. And of course, I was wondering, why would people want to do this? What's in it for them? So one thing is certainly creativity. When you are reknitting, you are not going to be following a set pattern. There can be no set pattern because everybody's starting point is different. So you really have to think more for yourself. And so it's an opportunity to kind of design and be creative in that way, which I think many people welcome. It's a chance to reinvigorate and refresh items in your wardrobe and give them a new lease of life. So it kind of puts those tools and that possibility in your hands. It's definitely a challenge. So again, if you're reknitting something, you're not following a pattern, and there's a lot that can go wrong. It could be frustrating at times, but I think people do find the process of encountering issues and overcoming them to be satisfying from the work that I've done with people. As I've mentioned, in the UK and other countries in the global north, we, as a society, we really have a massive oversupply of clothing. And so choosing to spend time and effort on making things more meaningful is a way of negotiating this abundance. And it's also a way of expressing resistance to the mainstream fashion system, the system which tells us to buy ready-made items and discard them quickly, regardless of the consequences. So all of this work is there on the Reknit Revolution website. If I've got a couple more minutes, I'd like to just talk a bit about fashion fictions. So this is the project that I'm working on now. And it so connects with the theme of togetherness and the idea of yarning and things that people have been talking about in their presentations today. I wanted to just bring this in. So fashion fictions brings people together to generate experience and reflect on engaging fictional visions of alternative fashion cultures and systems. And it's a project that I founded in 2020 and has involved thousands of participants now all over the world. It's been really amazing. And the project is motivated by the many environmental and social problems associated with the way that we commonly use clothes today in the global north, and the ever-increasing volumes of garments being produced. I'm thinking about the massive reduction in resource use and garment production that we need to see, and really thinking about the fact that post-growth systems will require quite different ways of living with our clothes, different social and cultural norms. And I would say that in my experience of talking to people about this stuff over a long time, I think people can often find it quite difficult to imagine radically different alternatives. I think the status quo feels quite sort of entrenched. And so this project is really a way to create a safe space where we can just kind of very playfully explore the possibilities of what alternative fashion systems might look like, and ask ourselves, like, what do we wish for? How might we want things to be? So we're imagining parallel presents, so not the future, but parallel worlds where people live differently with their clothes, worlds to split off from our own at some point. And we're imagining kind of enticing, appealing alternative worlds. So not dystopias, maybe not necessarily utopias, but definitely kind of preferable worlds that we're intrigued to explore. And there's 3 stages to the project. So the first stage is writing 100-word texts about fictional alternative worlds. And then we make things that bring them to life. And then we really bring them to life by enacting them. So we stage events and activities that allow people to kind of step into these fictions in some way. So to wrap up, essentially we're sort of asking what if questions about the fashion system. What if things were different? There's some example what ifs here, and we're investigating that together. And the togetherness is really key. That the project has got hundreds of contributions from people all over the world, and so it's this kind of mass celebration, kind of explosion of ideas, and lots of the themes that come through in those ideas really connect to things that people have been talking about today. So a deep connection with nature and cultural heritage, imagining alternative histories without the violence of colonialism and extractivism, a lot of interest in relocalizing fibre and garment production. Cynthia's images of the sheep was remind me of World 124, where herds of sheep roam every town and city in Britain. Nice to imagine that one. And definitely sort of just widespread practices of making and mending and extreme resourcefulness. So it's trying to create this explosion of ideas and stories of how things might be different, and through that to create a sense of possibility that can support real world change. So I'll stop there, but please do have a look at the websites if you'd like to find out more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I very much want to be part of these alternative worlds, and everyone in the audience can stay in touch with you with these 3 addresses. Thank you so much
for
showing us the way. I wanted